So welcome to Minatures, my name's Stuart, and welcome to what is, I suppose, now a Flames of War project vlog number 4. A little bit more about that again in a moment. I know I sort of rambled on in project vlog for 3 about some slight changes to the project and that I was adding Flames of War to it, but I'll come back to that in a moment. As you can see now, I'm touring around with my camera. A gaming table looks decidedly like Normandy and nothing like the Pacific at all, and that's part of the changes which are happening with the project at the moment. Pacific's not completely going away, and as I said, I'll come back to that in a moment. But there are a number of things on the table there. Some buildings from Empires of War, which I recently did a small review on. I'll pop a little link in the video now. Go and check that out. A UK company, very reasonable priced, pre-painted buildings, and those of you who have seen that video will notice that I have actually added a few more buildings since. There's a church there, some terraced houses, and a warehouse, just to give me a bit of a mix of buildings and layouts. And a lot of the stuff you can see on the table there I had already. Is perfect from my 15mm collection, really, from American Civil War and from Napoleonic. So loads of that stuff is reusable, like the fences and things and the fields. And the sort of farmhouse in the corner is actually a American Civil War Massachusetts house, but it works perfectly as a farmhouse. And I ordered a few hedges to be bocage from Fat Frank through eBay, but other than that, stuff I already had. But I'm quite happy with the way the table looks, and obviously that's just one layout. The mat itself is from Geek Villain. It's the Summerfields mat. It's my go-to generic mat, and then the roads and the rivers on there are also from Geek Villain. They're self-cut. Now they're standard cloth. The actual mat itself is a fleece, which hangs over really nicely over terrain that you put underneath, mainly for hills and undulations. It doesn't always show up very well on the camera, but there are hills built in there. So I mentioned that the project was expanding. In the last video I showed you the box of Hit the Beach that I picked up as a way of kind of picking up the Flames of War rules and looking at expanding the later into the war aside from the Pacific. So I purchased a few more things, and I purchased another box of Hit the Beach, and then there's some decals and some tanks and things there. I just couldn't resist. There's some Tigers, some Panzer IVs, some 251 transports, so I could turn the Germans that come into the Hit the Beach set into armoured Panzer Grenadiers if I wanted to. And then I bought some more books and some command cards and unit cards to go with it. So from the Flames of War side of things, we're looking at all of the D-Day books to go with it, and then the Bulge books, which of course, pretty much in my mind fit on from that kind of late war 44 onwards anyway. Then I slipped and bought something I really didn't need, which is the latest release, which is the Eastern Front compilation book. But it's such a lovely book, and there's so much stuff in it, and it was a bargain that I bought it. And I managed to get in a bundle with the Axis Allies cards, and I really don't need them. I don't have any intention of playing Eastern Front stuff very often or much at all, but I got it anyway. And then you'll see the orange tokens there. So I have to thank Duncan from Shoot and Scoop podcast, who very kindly sent me the minefield tokens and some dash tokens and some fail blitz tokens. So thank you very much for sending those. And if you haven't checked out the podcast, I mentioned it in the last vlog, but I'll pop a link in again now. Go and check them out. They are an absolutely fantastic Flames of War podcast. And then I slipped a little further, and these are absolute bargains from Satu Games. They're about £33 each. I love North Africa. Those of you that have seen my bolt action North African project, which has been a bit stalled recently, but still aim to finish it. Those of you seen that on the channel and the painting tutorials that I've done for those, I've got a real soft spot for British in North Africa, 8th Army stuff. And I just thought that yeah, I'm probably going to want to do some stuff in that theatre as well. So I ended up picking up some stuff for that. And you can already see that this is going to be a massive rabbit hole I'm going down for World War II, and very much more and more with the Flames of War flavour. So there, I've said it, the full switch has happened. I didn't plan it that way. That might mean some of you stop watching, those of you who don't like Flames of War or were here for Battle Group. But it is what it is, I'm afraid. But I'm enjoying myself, and that's the main thing. But I've bought a few extras with that as well, just to bulk it out. There's actually some 8th Army inventory on the way that I found on eBay, some universal carriers and some 17-pounders there. There's a couple of Tigers, but I need some other bits to go with that as well. But those will be after my my 1944 stuff in Northern Europe, which is the kind of the next main focus. And of course, rather than buying all the books individually, it's very handy. There's a North Africa compilation book, which is absolutely fantastic, really, really nice. So I had to grab that. And then there's the card sets to go with the 4 armies that are included in those 2 starters. Well, let's bring you back to the case in hand and what's actually happening with the project. Those of you who follow the channel and will know from my other project vlogs that they're not normally like this, and not normally in vlog number 4, still faffing around, almost announcing the project still. And then the Flames of War came in and kind of tainted it all, and just, really attracted me and dragged me in. And now I'm, as you can see, well and truly in with my huge ongoing Flames of War project from multiple theatres over time. So I started digging around a little bit more with the Pacific stuff and looking at when Pacific might come back. As I got to know the game a little bit more, I've been listening to podcasts and looking at older posts and things, and looking at these big compilation books and the releases. I was just thinking, well, I could go into this project and find out in a couple of months' time that Pacific is suddenly released. I didn't think that was going to happen, but I was enough concerned to go looking around a little bit on the internet, and I found an interview with Peter Simovich of Battlefront on the Battle Rankings podcast. Now I found it on their Facebook page through a video on there. I'm guessing it was a live stream video. I don't know if it's elsewhere, and I haven't got a link for it, I'm afraid. But it was in Battle Rankings in December in 2021. So if you find Battle Rankings on Facebook, you'll be able to go back and scroll through, find their live videos and watch the interview. It's a lovely interview, fairly wide ranging, and they talk about releases and things. But he did talk about the planned dates for certain things, and it was April 2023 for Pacific. Now I know the pace that my projects happen at. I'm busy. I've got multiple projects. This isn't the only thing. I've got a lot of work and I've got a young family, so I know that projects rumble on slowly for months and months and months, and I like them that way. That's cool. It means I can bring you guys updates. I can do painting tutorials and mix them up. But there is a danger that I'd still be painting Pacific stuff coming along in the new year, and then suddenly get it all ready, or haven't even quite finished it, and then a new book comes out and completely invalidates half of what I've based, and just paint it. Now normally that wouldn't be an issue, but if I've just finished a project, that might be a little bit disheartening. So I've decided to slow the Pacific style side of things down quite a lot. I will do some painting. I'm still planning on doing a couple more painting tutorials and doing the Imperial Japanese. I'm painting up a few stands just to mix in with the vlog, because the vlog is going to be a complete mix now of different sort of Flames of War theatres. But I thought I need to focus on some stuff that I know is completely current in order to learn the game properly. It seems silly to be scratching my head trying to work out a version 3 to 4 conversion, or using the old point systems and mismatching with some of the old rules and all the things I was looking at doing, when I also want to play some of the other theatres, and that's where we're at now with these books, really. So this is going to be my main focus to begin with. It's going to be sort of 44 D-Day onwards, so the D-Day, the breakout, onto the bulge, mostly because the armies I build will be usable in both, and it's just some changes in their formats and stuff, so I can just play the different theatres without having to start completely new armies. Maybe I'd want snow basing on certain things, that kind of stuff, but aside from that, the project for me dovetails, and this is all one big kind of offensive. So that's where we're at with it. So I'm going to, if I place the bulge booklets to start with, it brings us on to the D-Day, which is where I'm cracking on with. So focusing on D-Day, American-wise, in those starter boxes for the Hit the Beach, you get parachute regiments and you get Shermans. Parachute regiments, fantastic. I'm a fan of Band of Brothers, and no doubt they will be a large influence on what I'm planning on doing, really. So you're looking at your D-1 day formations here. You've got your parachute rifle companies, and then you also have your breakout formations, and I'll be looking at the M4 Shermans as well to start with, rather than some of the other things. It's at the start of the book then, so I'm probably going to do something 101st related. It may even be Easy Company, and I've got 2 platoons from the 2 starter sets, and I've actually got and built a third platoon as well. So essentially I've got a whole rifle company, and I've already ordered and received some 81mm mortars as well. Haven't got any of the other 3 options so far. Be interesting to know what you guys think, those of you who are Flames of War players. I'm not too worried from a competitive point of view. It's more about how likely historically they would have been seen. If they are, I will definitely be picking them up. But you know, it's only 3 more options to pick up anyway, a few boxes, so it might be nice to have the complete thing anyway. And then your tank company, your M4 Sherman tank company, is the second thing as well. You get some 75mm and some 76 in the starter box, and you've got quite a few. So M4 Sherman Tank Company is definitely going to be the starting point, and will give me quite a lot of points. I think I loosely added it all together. If I take the 2 starter sets plus the mortars that I've purchased extra and the extra platoon, you're looking at 120 points as it is anyway. So it's a decent sized force. I will want to pick up some different tanks and things, absolutely, but I'm a big fan of Shermans anyway. They would have been probably where I started, and it seems to be a nice thing to get as support, whether it's the second formation or just from support units and things. I'll probably paint more tanks first, just so I can get playing, really. I have a son who's quite taken by some of the tanks and things, and starting to get interested in World War II a little bit from a historical point of view. And yeah, I thought a few small tank-only battles would be a good way of spending a bit of time with him, but also helping to get my head around the rules and learn the rules, and maybe even bring some battle reports to the channel. From the German side of things, pretty straightforward as well. So you get Panzer IVs in those starter sets, and you get Panzer Grenadiers. Now I've purchased a box of 251s and a Commander HQ with a 251 as well, so that I could go towards your armoured Panzer Grenadier company. I think I'm more likely to go with the standard Panzer Grenadier company, and I have 1 armoured Panzer Grenadier platoon. I think you can have it as support. You might actually be able to have it as part of a black box as well. I can't remember off the top of my head, and I'm not going to flick to that point now. But again, I've added up the points for what you get in the 2 starter sets based on, I think you get 4. I think it's going to be 4 platoons, so 3 standard Panzer Grenadiers and 1 as a support, I think, platoon armoured, plus all the Panzer IVs you get as well. And then I've also bought a box of Tigers, and I'm definitely not going to build all 5, but I think maybe adding 2 of those. And I've got some Jag Panthers as well, so if I add in a couple of those, you could easily get, I think I can get up to 150 points with the stuff I have. So 2 decent kind of chunky starter forces. I have no idea how well they'll balance out. So again, this is where it comes down to any of you that are experienced with it and say, I would add this, I wouldn't add that. It may well be, don't run the Tigers right now until I had some, something to deal with it a little bit more, because obviously the US side doesn't have any artillery apart from the 76 on the M4 Shermans and things. So I don't know enough about the game yet, but I've bought a bit of a smattering of stuff, and I realise they may need a little bit of balancing between the two armies just to make them have fairly balanced games. But I'll add and build stuff slowly until it sort of works nicely and have some nice games again, hopefully, to get on the channel. But like with the Americans, I'm going to be painting the panzers first, and maybe a tiger or something like that, and then getting some tank battles to learn the rules before I start adding the infantry platoons in afterwards. Right, as chunky vlog as this is, no doubt I will keep you longer for those of you that are still watching, but we are getting towards the end now, you may be pleased to know. So I've started painting some things other than the Pacific stuff that you've already seen, and I always like to pick up some new paint sets when I do. I had some of these paints before. Some of them were from other Vallejo sets. Some of them were kind of half empty or getting a bit old now, so I thought it was worth just picking up these sets anyway, and they became a sort of a good core for what I'll be using for this project. So these are obviously Vallejo sets, but I say licensed by Flames of War. The Flames of War logo's there, but it doesn't say Flames of War. It just says it's just got the picture and it says World War II. But I suppose that makes it marketable for Vallejo to use for other systems and things. But it was a really good way of getting the core colours that I would need for the project moving forwards. And this book here was not very expensive at all, under £15, hardback book by Vallejo and Battlefront, and it is absolutely brilliant. Even if you don't play Flames of War, this is a really nice kind of one-stop shop if you use Vallejo paints, I suppose, because it gives you really nice references. It's useful if you don't, because you'll be able to cross-reference. Some really, really good kind of basic hobby advice, the kind of things you've seen in early Citadel books and things and many other places, and it's not something I've read because it's not something I obviously need, but for people that are new, it's fantastic. I imagine my son flicking through this in a year or so, and him sort of learning some of the things that the way I did, which is great. So it's just a really, really good book. Lots and lots of kind of painting techniques and theory, talking about washes and glazing and base coating. Some of this is higher level stuff. Some of it's not. It's just really, really, really good book. I'm extremely impressed with it. It talks about basing. It's a very complete book, but I mostly picked it up for the painting guides that it has in it, just to give me some basic ideas, to save me doing Google searches all the time to find out which colour for which thing. So let me skip forward a little bit. If we go to the US section, because that's what I've been working on to start with, and you go to these M4 Shermans here, it tells you what your base colour is and tells you what your highlight is, and it's just a really, really good way of making sure that I'm not going too far with the wrong shade of green. And you never know, there might be someone in the comments now telling me that actually the Vallejo olive drab isn't the right colour for this and this book's wrong. Well, if it isn't, so be it. But it's close enough for me. It's a good place to start. And I found it very, very useful, especially when it comes onto things like this, where you've got your decals. Now, obviously, it references all the Battlefront, or the Flames of War decals, which I've picked up anyway. But it's still useful whether you pick them up from third parties, and it just tells you what kind of decals will be used in which places, which is really, really handy as well. So really, really useful. It's the kind of stuff I normally, when it comes to historical stuff that I don't know off the top of my head, especially when it comes to World War II, I'm scratching my head and I'm doing internet searches, and you find artwork that might not be accurate. Well, this might not be 100% accurate, but I'm going to go for it, and it's really, really handy. And then you have your sort of uniform guides, including airborne here, and it again tells you your base colours and things, which just really, really helped me out. So if you haven't seen this already or picked it up, I really recommend it. It's got, the modern stuff in there as well, which doesn't really attract me at all. But the vast majority of it is standard Flames of War stuff, and I imagine I'll be referring to this book again and again. Now, I don't like to finish videos without some progress for the hobby side of things, rather than me just babbling on. And considering we're at vlog number 4, of which I've only painted up until this point some Pacific stuff, which is now being superseded by other things, I thought that I best get some test paints done and share them with you and show you the kind of direction I'm going in. So I just painted up a normal stand of Airborne and a command stand, which I'll show you in a moment. And I've actually done a painting tutorial for these, and that will be up in the next week or two, I imagine. It does need editing still. And so I won't go through all the paints I've used in any detail really, but they were primed using a zenithal prime, a little bit of dry brushing first, and then I found a very quick method for these, much quicker than anything I found recently, using contrast and then highlighting using mostly Vallejo model colour from the book. So I'm relatively happy with them. They're not the best things ever, but they are a tabletop army, and I've got 3 platoons or a whole company of these that I want to get done. So this is the command stand itself, and this is the one that does appear in the as the subject of the painting tutorial. Well, the one guy. There are some flowers on this base, you'll notice, which isn't very kind of autumn or winterish, I know, but I figured if I put some white ones on there, they may pass the eye as a little bit of snow or something. But it did break the base up nicely for the command stand. But again, reasonably happy with the way that the process I've got down for these. A couple of things I'd maybe like to do a little bit better, and that might develop over time as I've been painting a lot of them. This one was a bit more of a treat. I absolutely love painting tanks, even though in games I don't generally like games with just tanks in. I prefer infantry games. And I know I've said I'm going to start with tank battles, but the infantry will follow very shortly afterwards. But in terms of painting them and the way they look, I absolutely love painting tanks. And this is a painting tutorial as well that I'm in the middle of editing at the moment, which will probably be the next video after this one. So maybe 2 or 3 days after this video drops, this will be the next thing that comes out. Congratulations for making your way to the end of this video, and thank you again for bearing with me and watching if you've made it this far. I'm very conscious of how messy this whole video series has been. Those of you who watch my project vlogs for some of my other games and periods that I do will know that they're generally a little bit more focused and actually progress, rather than this kind of mismatch of kind of changing my mind about what's going on. And if I knew it would have happened, I wouldn't have started the project vlog until I knew that I was going to mostly be focusing on Flames of War. I certainly wouldn't sort of launch it under a banner of battle group with maybe playing some bolt action, and then change that in vlog number 3 to, ooh, I quite like the look of Flames of War, I might play some of that, I'm going to base my armies that way, to by vlog number 4 saying, yeah, this is pretty much going to be a Flames of War project. And the Pacific project that I started with is definitely going to happen, but it's going to be paused for a while until I work out whether they're going to release a new book next year or not, rather than undoing all my work. So it all makes sense to me, and as a gamer, my decisions are legitimate for sure, but as a viewer of the project vlog, some of you may be hopping off if you haven't already and not watching any further if you're not interested in Flames of War. It might create, some of you who do like Flames of War might find that you do want to watch more. Who knows, really? But again, the vlogs are a vlog. They are just to document my progress on particular projects, and this one's had a particularly messy start. Though I feel in a very, very good place now in terms of where I want to be with 15mm World War II gaming. Smaller scale gaming has become my thing anyway, by the looks of things, aside from some Middle-earth strategy battle game and maybe a bit of bolt action here or there. 15mm seems to be the size on scale for me, if you include Warlords Epic in that. I know it's not quite 15mm, and it was probably only a matter of time before my World War II head was turned towards stuff anyway, and yeah, Flames of War is where it's going to be. But saying that, if anyone ever wants to play Battle Group or even O Group, I will happily make forces from my Flames of War collections to play those games, and the basing will allow that, and that was one of the reasons for doing it as well. But here we are, and this is what we have. So what's going to come up then? So the vlog will be a lot more like my normal vlogs moving forward, and be showing my painting projects and updates on what I'm doing towards playing those games. I am interested in looking a little bit more into the narrative side of Flames of War. There's some very nice scenarios in the the books in different theatre books, but they're not narrative-y enough for me. They kind of give you a set of objectives and a layout really, but there's not very much of in terms of there's no order of battles and things like that, so which is good in some ways because it means you're completely open. But if anyone knows any good resources, so people have written very kind of detailed narrative scenarios and things like that, so in particular for the areas I'm looking at. So to start with, D-Day -1, and then the other actions that you'll have seen the airborne involved in. So we're probably looking at Market Garden, and we're going to be looking at Bulge and stuff as well. So those kind of things, and then the same for North Africa as well. I'll definitely be looking to expand with those. I will chop and change between theatres a bit, but it will be heavily focused on Europe to start with, but I may well take a break here and there and actually get some of the North Africa tanks and stuff painted. Like I said, I'll be quite happy to have a few tank only battles, especially with my son, and I've got desert terrain and a mat and things as well, so it might be a nice way of changing it up a little bit and getting some different painting tutorials. Which brings me neatly on to the kind of supporting videos that go around these vlogs, is that as a commission painter I'll be putting lots of painting tutorials out for the miniatures that I'm doing, and as I've already said, I've recorded the one for the M4 Sherman and for the Airborne as well, and they're both in the process of being edited at the moment, and the plan will be that the M4 Sherman tutorial will be out as the next video after this. Something may change, but that's the plan now, so do look out for that one soon. But anyway, thank you very much for watching. If you are new to the channel, do check out the other videos on there. The World War II Flames of War stuff will become a lot more focused from now on, so don't jump ship if you've watched the previous vlog videos and get a bit confused. But do check them out. You'll see my journey and how I got to where I am now. Check the video. Hopefully you like the video. Give us a like if you have. Check out the other videos. Subscribe to the channel if you like what you see on there, and I'll catch you soon.